Oh. Is it working now?
Yeah.
We're live. Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Who Doesn't Have a Podcast. I am joined today by Michael Priestley. Say hello, Michael.
Hello.
And my Senor Jerome Dowling. Say hello, Jerome.
Hello, Jerome.
You did that last week. Wasn't funny last week. Not funny this week.
But you know what? It's continuity.
Yeah.
Fun continuity.
More continuity than Doctor Who. I'm joking. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
So this week we are looking at episode 2 of the 60th anniversary specials, the Wild Blue Yonder. What do we all think?
I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. I thought it was phenomenal. I think there's an interesting discussion to be had about, which maybe we'll do later, about expectation versus reality in terms of what we thought it might be and what it was. But that actually didn't really bother me at all, to be honest. And actually, I wonder if my expectations are in any way helpful for running a show. You know what I mean? If you know. But anyway, yeah, that was me. Jerome?
Well, as you know, Dan, I am almost violently opposed to agree with Mike on anything. But on this occasion, I do have to agree with him. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really I loved the fact it was just the two of them. Really, I know. I love the fact that he just Russell just simplified it to its core. It was like it's the Doctor and it's Donna and it's alternate versions of themselves with an alien that hasn't been fully explained, and that's it. You got to deal with that, and I loved it. I thought it felt like. To me, it felt like a classic episode of Doctor Who that will still be talked about in years to come. That's how I feel about it. Really,
it was bottle episode vibes, wasn't it? So the bottle episode is where it's like, obviously they didn't do this. Bottle episode is usually where they need to cut budget, so they only have it's like midnight. It's only like a few characters and it's set in one location. But this one, they obviously didn't need to do that because it's only 3 specials and they've got all the money in the world. They have the same essence of a bottle episode where it's only 2 people, which is really interesting, isn't it? Because what I was texting you guys about beforehand is when we were getting all excited about who could possibly be in it, right? And David Tennant said that quote that he knew about the casting beforehand, but didn't realize that it would be manifested in this way. And now, actually having seen it, that makes sense because he knew the casting would have been it's just them two. Yeah, he didn't realize it would be manifested in the way it was, which was probably some of the most shit things I've ever seen Doctor Who ever do, ever. So it was pretty excellent. What about you?
I completely agree with you guys. It just seemed like Russel T Davies kind of thought, right, what can I do to really bring out the best of David Tennant and Catherine Tate? Because those two together are absolute dramatic energy across the board, and they can achieve and do incredible things. I mean, they're fantastic performers anyway, but they really flexed the acting muscles last night, and it was absolutely fantastic to watch. I loved the twists throughout the entire episode. It was really, I was surprisingly creeped out. Really, it was a very different. I do get what they were talking about in the past. And I said it was going to be a very scary, very unique episode in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I was quite surprised at how unnerved I kind of felt watching it, because there were certain points where you just felt genuinely uncomfortable. But yeah, I just thought it was another classic Who, and I think the build up now into our final episode next Saturday is absolutely fantastic, considering when this was the unknown episode. This was the one that completely flew under the radar, and it was kept very, very hush hush. It absolutely delivered. And I think, like you said as well, because the expectations were, I don't want to say they were high because we didn't know what to expect, but it absolutely delivered on the sort of thing it was going to be. And yeah, it was really, really fabulous.
Russel T Davies said on the official Doctor Who podcast that he doesn't know if it was a mistake whether to keep it so shrouded in secrecy, because it did lead to certain theories being thrown around.
I did see it on X yesterday, and I nearly told you guys, but I thought no, because if it's spoil it, it's not going to be fair on anybody. But someone had taken a screen grab from a Virgin TV listing And one of the actors' names that was listed in the thing was James Corden. And I saw that and I went, oh, God, no.
He's back for the triple whammy. I love those James Corden episodes, by the way.
I think that was the last.
The first one's
Good thing
good.
he did.
The second one, I'm not as keen on. But anyway, that's a side thing.
So I just thought, how the hell does that kind of squeeze it? What would he be playing? What would he be doing? I'm very relieved. No offense to James Corden, but I was very relieved that he didn't make an appearance in this.
He's actually the next Doctor instead of shooting Gatwa. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the absolute fucking outrage?
I did. There was a moment watching this episode where the scene where the imposter doctor takes his tie off, and it did make me think of one of the clips from one of the trailers from like weeks ago, where you see Ncuti without a tie, kind of in very similar to what I was wearing, and I was like, "Ooh, is this gonna like somehow? Is there gonna be, I don't know, like if they can read all their memories and minds, is it that they can just choose whatever appearance from the people they've kind of masked over?" So there was a brief moment where I was like, "We about to see Ncuti," and then we did, which I think was a good thing. I actually genuinely enjoyed the fact that it was almost a celebratory episode of them, like them as pairing. Like it felt like, and I really like, because I listened to Russell say, it might have been on the podcast, it might have been on something else, I can't remember, but he was saying he was thinking about loads of ideas for this episode. He was thinking at one point of having like William Hartnell turn up in like, you know, just there, open a room and he's there. And it's kind of like he was like playing with loads of different really ambitious stuff. And then he kind of came back to it and he was like, no, I just need to have trust in David and Catherine and that they'll nail it. And that actually like they are enough. He was like, cameos and stuff are great. And he was like, and obviously like you like to surprise the fans, but sometimes you just need to like be honest with yourself and go, no, like they're popular enough. Like they are enough. They carry the show in their own right. And I thought that was a really important point because, you know, we've had 2 episodes now. There's been a lot of rumor about who might appear, and we haven't really had anyone yet. It was lovely to see. I'm sure we'll get onto this in a bit, but it was lovely to see Bernard Cribbins. Yeah, but it was there hasn't really been the cameos that I think people expected there to be, but it hasn't been a problem.
No, I feel like the issue if you did have a cameo in that episode, it would have kind of lulled the tension or the excitement for the final episode. So I feel like this episode, as brilliant as it was almost kind of like the roller coaster slowing down before it then takes off again with everything that kicks off to come, which I think it kind of needs. It has that kind of traction to kind of regain to lead towards that.
Like, are they going to do any of that fun servicey stuff? I could see it going either way because they have described it as a mini series, right?
Yeah.
So is it just 3 episodes that are just, you know, and then it looks to the future? Because obviously Shooting Out was going to be in the next one in a bigger role than what's kind of been teased, right? I mean, I think that's probably fair to say, like, especially with the Next Time trailer.
He's been in the Next Time trailer, yeah, hasn't he?
Yeah. So it's like, so is it like this is a celebration of David Tennant and Catherine Tate and looking to, but that's it. It's the 60th anniversary, so I'm like, because these 2 episodes so far have been very focused on those 2.
And I suppose as well. Oh no, go on. No, I was going to say I think with the 50th, because you had so many cameos, there would have been that kind of danger of overdoing it once again for the 60th, and it would just become that continuous pattern of, oh, here's another anniversary, let's bring back another old Doctor. And I suppose this time around we sort of got that already with David, so you don't really need to so much play upon that. And, you know, as you were saying, Jerome, just celebrate their abilities as actors, and it kind of transcends Doctor Who in the sense that you're seeing these characters portray versions of themselves that are utterly terrifying, and incredible to watch as well. Because I was going to say, when the penny did drop, did you 2 notice it straight away, or was it kind of a bit further down the line when you went, oh, that's happening?
Straight away. They were acting.
I was the same.
Weird. I actually had it on my notes to say because I just rewatched it before we started. There's a moment where it's the David Tennant imposter appears first, so the Doctor imposter appears first. He walks into where Donna is, and even the way he walks in, I can't remember what the first line he says is you notice it straight away. They're very good actors, you know, and it's the same with her. It's the same with Donna. He walks in and she's just looking at him weird, and it's great. Let's see if I can find that line. Actually, carry on.
Yeah,
I'll interrupt.
really good prosthetic magic. Loved it.
Oh, that was outstanding. Yeah.
The first time we saw, but like both of them, but I think it was her hand first, wasn't it? And then it was both of David's hands, and I was like, that is horrendous. Like that is like in the best way, in a way that I was like admiring, but I was like, that is actually disgusting.
And the most incredible,
it was. I love the fact like it was scary because, especially the first few scenes, like when they were getting chased down the corridor, and you had the weird eyes and the like, and I loved really, as a horror fan, like horror is one of my favorite genres. I loved the callback to like classic werewolf movies from the 40s with the way that David ran, and also the Spider Exorcist. Like,
the Exorcist, yeah.
Many callbacks to stuff there, and I was like, love it, really love it. And it didn't feel like parody. It felt like it was a genuine like moment that they carried off. Like it didn't feel like we're going to do this, but I really enjoyed it.
So I just looked at some notes that I did. So the Doctor walks in the first time you introduce the imposter, and just it's his physicality that you notice immediately. It's a bit looser, and then when Donna's imposter walks in, she says, "I did what you said," but she says it so blandly and so it's honestly, it was.
And it's when you kind of expand upon the whole context of it, it's those two aliens or creatures really like first starting to draw that information through from their partners. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I just love some of the moments, like the first bits, like when they're looking through the glass sort of shield, and they're both there looking through, going think. It was, and like the Doctor's trying everything within him to kind of contain any thought or like kind of trying to not be the Doctor for once, like completely backfiring.
The idea of imposter is really scary. Like that, and I think it was like I feel like all the best Doctor Who episodes that have been scary are very, very simple. Like the horror's very, very simple at heart. Like with the angels, it's the fear of not being able to see them move. Do you know what I mean? And with like, there's been others like Listen. I thought was a really good episode with Capaldi, where it was just like they never really showed you anything, but they just like it was just that idea of the concept. And even when one of my favorite horror films is, I don't know if either of you boys have seen The Thing, like in the 90s.
I have, yeah.
Like, but that idea of like the scariest bits aren't actually with the monster per se. The scariest bits are when they're like all in a group. So like in this, for example, with Doctor Who, it's like when you have the four of them and you're genuinely, as a watcher, kind of going, which one is real and which one isn't, and it's like that. That really makes it tense. So I love the way they employed
and
that.
the whole idea, the whole way that Russel T Davies played with it, in which that these monsters are monsters that internalize other people's thoughts and personalities, that makes that much more terrifying, because it is just very, very little things. It's actually all in the performance, really, until there are bits of dialogue that make it a little more real. Back to what Jerome said before, I was thinking the whole time, are there going to be any cameos in this? And actually, the idea of these imposters that body shape, I don't know what you'd call it, like you know, that they could be, because they've got all the Doctor's memories. The cameos are, the possibilities are sky high, aren't they? You could have had Matt Smith in it. He could have just walked into a room and Matt Smith's Doctor was there or whatever, but not in a way to trick Donna, because she wouldn't know. It's more like to taunt the Doctor, I guess. You know, it could have been Jodie Whittaker. That would have been mad. That would have been crazy, because she's only just left. Do you imagine the shock of that? You'd be like, you know, they've kept that under wraps.
I just love this. I just love that moment when again you have Donna just kind of running through the Doctor's memories, and that's like one of the first times in a while that you see him kind of truly helpless and kind of going, she knows. Like,
so this is what I wanted to ask you, Dan.
Yeah.
How much do you know about the Doctor's memories in the last 15 years? How much do you know about the Flux?
There's reasonable awareness, but I think I kind of took it not so much from the literal value, but kind of, I mean, that's probably the only part of the episode I had to kind of really like use my imagination, kind of try and piece together that little part. So with context, I imagine it would have hit a hell of a lot harder, but I still found myself getting very emotional for him. And then the minute it turns around and he's trapped, he's like screaming and banging, kicking everything down. Like that's a side of the Doctor I haven't seen, in like that real kind of like absolute rage, and then having to calm down and like keep calm, carry on.
Well,
but I'm
cynics
guessing
would say, and cynics are Jerome, right? Cynics would say that that's probably the best depiction of the after effects of the flux that there have been in Doctor Who. And
Yeah.
cynics would say that the series titled Doctor Who Flux didn't touch on any of that.
yeah.
And was a bit shit. But that's what cynics would say. That's what cynics would say. Not me.
So-
I mean, I'm actually a big fan of it, but Jerome would definitely say that Flux was shit. And
Okay. So in a nutshell, then, how? I know it's obviously a lot to try and unpack, but what happened in the flux?
in the
Or is it-
flux.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Man, look at him. He's got half a face on the screen. He can't even talk about the
Hold on.
flux with confidence.
I thought I was fully on the script. Right. Cynics would say that the flux destroyed half the universe and then wasn't talked about. That's what cynics would say.
Okay.
Right? Not me. I loved it. Like I said before. Right? But no, it was a it was a universe. It was Jodie Whittaker. It was a universe-ending catastrophe. Like literally, half the universe died, and then it was probably probably one of the biggest events in Doctor Who history, to be honest. Jerome, anything else to add?
Yeah. No, to be fair, look, the flux is a really. Me and Mike, like jokes aside, we've talked about this before. It's a really, really original and interesting like concept, and I think it does have the potential to really grow into something quite unique and take the Doctor Who story into completely like unheard of places. And I think that's exciting. I just don't like the way it was done. That can be put down to like, you know, people talk about showrunners and the episodes themselves, and I think the writing, and I don't know, it's never really sat right with me. But without going into too much of an opinion on it, like from what Mike was saying, it hasn't just shone the Doctor in a new light, it's shone the Time Lords in a completely new light. I mean, they've always been a little bit sort of not the best kind of beings in the universe before. People like Rassilon and that are like, have never been great, but now they're kind of like, oh, actually, like it's a bit like that sort of Mitchell and Webb sketch where it's like, are we the bad guys? It's kind of like sort of going into that realm a little bit. And I think as well, I think a lot of fans were upset maybe that it kind of shone a little bit of disrespect on like the people who have played the Doctors, where it's like, well, it could be anyone. It could have been anyone at any time. And actually there's been like hundreds and thousands of minis, which I don't really mind that much, but I just think the way it's been done has left all of these questions because it wasn't very clean.
So Dan, you might not be aware. Right. So what Jerome's talking about is there's Doctor Who. So the Flux is the universe event that ends like half the universe, and that was a whole Jodie Whittaker series. I don't know if you watched it. It was like the one that they did during COVID. So really, really hard to like pull Doctor Who off during COVID. It's the first time in modern Doctor Who that it's been a one singular story, which I was really excited about, to be honest. Like they called it Doctor Who Flux, and it is one story over like 6 episodes. In that, there are revelations about the Timeless Child. Do you know anything about the Timeless Child or heard about the Timeless Child?
Again, I'm aware of it, but in terms of, because this is Peter Capaldi storyline.
Jodie Whittaker again. It was all
Jodie Whittaker.
Jodie Whittaker. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Timeless Child is the revelation that, spoiler alert, the Doctor isn't from Gallifrey, which they touch on in this episode. The Doctor isn't from Gallifrey. They are from a different universe, and they were adopted by a Time Lord.
Abducted.
Abducted, yeah, and actually became a Time Lord through that. And actually, regeneration itself isn't from Time Lord DNA; it's from the Doctor's DNA. So the Doctor can regenerate, and therefore the Time Lords can all regenerate because they did experiments on her.
They basically stole the ability to regenerate from the being that was the Doctor. So we don't know. So this being, the timeless child, wasn't necessarily always the Doctor, because like all Time Lords choose their own name, and at some point this being has chosen to, give themselves the name of the Doctor. But before that, it's kind of like this being, and this being had the ability to regenerate. I've kind of done more research into it. It's kind of sort of inspired by a storyline that didn't get completed under Sylvester McCoy, where he was going to be revealed as a being called the Other. But it never happened because it was 1983 or whatever, and the BBC were like, nope, Doctor Who's getting put on the back seat. So it never happened. But it's interesting. I'm sure we're going to learn more about it, and I'm sure Russell will kind of go into more detail on it. But I think at the same time, I think it's good, like kind of going back to what we were saying about cameos and things. Like, I think it's good they kind of leave it alone and focus on the stories themselves, because I think maybe that's possibly the risk you run with bringing loads of Doctors back and different cameos. And it's not that you shouldn't, because everyone loves to see them. But it kind of it makes everything like, oh, do you know about this? Do you know about this? Do you know about this? Oh, this thing happened. This is important. This reference this character's making. And I think sometimes you've just got to go, we need to focus on now. Like, we need to push forward with the story and with all of these references and stuff. So I think the fact that they are focusing it on the 14th Doctor and Donna is probably a good thing in the main, that's the kind of the anchor they're taking with it. I think it's a strong decision.
I mean, I find it remarkable from what you guys have just told me how that throws the mother of all spanners in the works for being a Whovian and the whole kind of narrative of Doctor Who. And the fact that it was just touched upon, it's never really kind of been properly explained or outlined. Is that right? There's maybe a lot more to it. We've maybe just scratched the surface with this.
It's explained. I think where a lot of things may have gone wrong with it are, so one of the other important things is the Doctor, William Hartnell's first Doctor, isn't actually the first Doctor. There's an uncountable number of Doctors before William Hartnell that we've never seen. One of them was introduced in the Doctor Who in Jodie Whittaker's era, played by Joe Martin. It's actually it's a really good idea, but it is a bit like weird because the Time Lords wiped the Doctor's memory. So when we meet William Hartnell's first Doctor, actually they've had thousands of lives beforehand that they can't remember. So
yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness there. I think what a lot of fans didn't like was in Doctor Who Flux, they do actually explain it quite well. And then in Jodie Whittaker's final episode, The Power of the Doctor, it's not really touched on at all, is it, Jerome? Like in any way, really.
I think it's just one of those frustrating things where you have an idea, right? It's divisive. Not everyone likes it, but some people do like it, and that's fine. And then you almost, pardon my French, shit the bed a little bit and kind of go, I've done this thing, but now I'm not going to talk about it. And it's just there, and maybe I'm going to leave, so I'm going to let someone else kind of now deal with it. Okay, bye. It just felt a little bit like, okay, yeah, fine. I think it's like fair play. He's taken Doctor Who and gone like, here's this thing, go and play with it. Like, here's this new thing, go and take the thing into a different realm. But I think the problem is that he had a very good idea, or he had a very unique idea, and didn't know what to do with it. Actually, about Flux, he had this really interesting conceptual idea and went, this would be cool, but I have absolutely no idea what to do with
how to implement it.
Yeah. So there were two schools of thought about what Russel T Davies was going to do with this story. It was either going to be completely ignore it or run with it. And Russel T Davies is a smart enough showrunner to be like, well, this is this is such a rich like tapestry to really tap into. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much storytelling there. So I was really, really happy in this episode about all of the stuff to do with the Flux and the Timeless Child. I thought it was so well done and explained. And like you said, Dan, seeing the emotion of the Doctor who's got all this trauma now from what they've learned, like, they don't know where they're from. They always thought they were from Gallifrey and they're not. So I think that's such a good like orphan story. So, but what I said at the start was, I think a lot of fans are like, Russel T Davies has done more with that storyline in maybe like 2 or 3 sentences than maybe was explored in the Doctor Who series called Doctor Who Flux. But yeah, there we go.
It's the big new thing, isn't it? Because it's like when Doctor Who came back in 2005, the big difference was there was the Time War and all of the Time Lords have been wiped out and they had a massive war of the Daleks and that was that. And that was the big thing. That was the big crux. That was like the thing in the background.
That was the big flux.
That was it. That was the big cheese. And now it's the flux. That's the thing. That's going to be the background thing. That's going to be... So I feel like it does have potential for sure. And I think in the hands of someone who you know knows how to carry it on or can think of things, I think it could do very well. But it's obviously going to be divisive. When you've got a show that's 60 years old, of course it's going to be divisive because people have got so many personal memories, do you know what I mean, to so many different like versions of the show.
It's almost like when a band that you love and you followed for years change their sonically change. So they'll go for like a different sound or a different yeah. And sometimes they'll try a new thing out and people go, what the hell is this shit? Why can't we have the old stuff? And people go, oh, do you know what? At least they're trying something new and they're keeping it fresh and keeping it interesting. So as a fan, you're still drawn in because you don't really know what's going to come. So it's more unpredictable. And speaking of, because there's one enormous thing in this entire episode that we've not even mentioned, which is the very beginning. And Sir Isaac Newton.
Yeah. Mavity.
Now, is Mavity mentioned somewhere else in the past, Doctor Who? Is it kind of something that's been hinted in the past, or is this just something new or we've changed the words now?
I think the idea is that they went into the past, they met Isaac Newton, they influenced things, so Isaac Newton thought that he said Mavity instead of gravity, and then they introduced it. It's like it changes time. So
it's like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Were you it's for Mike, but it's also for Dan as well. Were you happy to see a return of the pun-based kind of like expressions of different words for subjects in a Doctor Who episode? Because I don't know if Mike's told you, Dan, he absolutely loved the Children in Need special, the 5-minute one, didn't you, Mike? You're roaring about it.
I hated it. It made me really worried about actually like Doctor Who, because that's the first bit of like Russel T Davies new era Doctor Who that we saw.
Can I just say, Mike, I'm glad you said that, because I felt a bit. It was a bit shit. But I think for me, and again, and I know this goes into a whole bigger argument, but it wasn't until, and this is how bad the situation was, it wasn't until it had finished and I was looking online that I realised that the baddie, that was Davros.
Oh, really?
I had no idea, because it was like, this is not the Davros that we've seen before. Like he's able-bodied. He's not, and again, like I know why Ross has gone down this route, because he doesn't want those that are disabled to look or be portrayed as bad guys. But Davros isn't, like, I've never seen someone in a wheelchair and got, well, you're like Davros, you're clearly evil. Like that's never been the case. I think it's been more so the fact that because this is an individual that has been so kind of lost in his own power and ability, and the reason kind of the Dalek is molded around him and in his abilities. Do you know what I mean? Like it kind of helps form the Dalek as a character based off Davros. And I think the biggest shock was because you completely changed the identity of that one character. I know this is obviously Doctor Who and they change all the time, but I just thought, okay, are we going to see other major differences or ramifications to characters that we've seen millions of times in the past?
Davros was a Thal originally, I think. So obviously, like it's been a case of that's been a progress over time. I think, like, yeah, it sometimes I think like there can be like an implement of change that kind of shocks you, where you go, oh, like that's a thing. But actually, like, because I think really like the Daleks are meant to be. Well, I think that it's never been officially confirmed, but like it's always kind of been well assumed that they're based off the Nazis. And like I think actually like it didn't bother me so much he wasn't in his original form. It was just the fact that because he kind of came across as this sort of all leather clad kind of dark evil kind of thing, I was like, that as long as that's there, that kind of like I'm fine with it, because it's kind of like it's still carrying that they're not. It's because sometimes, to be fair, it kind of makes it a little bit scarier because, and I don't want to make this about the Daleks because we're actually talking about an episode here, but the whole Davros thing, like sometimes the Daleks, like you've seen so many companions just push them over and just roll them out the way and then kind of like turn on like electric floors to kind of, get rid of them and stuff. And the fact that it's like, oh no, there's a bit more, do you know what I mean? Like maybe going back to look at the Thal routes, like I'm down for that. I think that could work, but yeah.
I actually, the reasons I didn't like it were a little bit, I don't really care about these big changes to do with characters. Like I don't really mind. I get like the representation thing that they're trying to do. I think because I'm an able-bodied person, I don't recognize that was a problem in the first place. But because they have, I've got absolutely no problems with their fixes. It doesn't affect me at all. I like Davros as a character, but I've never, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. I thought that special was shit. I just thought all the jokes fell flat. I thought like I had no idea. Like I just thought it wasn't delivered very well, and it was just. And I got worried because I thought, is this how it's going to be now? This kind of like interplay of dialogue. And I also thought, and it pains me to say this, I thought that David Tennant was overacting as well. I was like, I was just like, I really hope this isn't what we're in for. And actually, the Star Beast proved that it wasn't. So I was, fine with it. It's just, I think it's children in need. It's supposed to be mass appeal,
Yeah, it's meant to be dark and silly, isn't it?
You felt that David Tennant was overacting for the special. Were you over donating for children in need?
Moving on. On the flux again, we won't bore you too much, Dan, but I actually thought what else was really good about this episode and how it integrated that history was the flux destroyed half the universe. So half the universe had a hole blown into it, essentially. And this is how those monsters arrived. And I thought that was so neat because it's such a big event that wasn't really talked about. Of course, it's going to have these catastrophic implications. And 100%, this is how the Toymaker arrives into this universe again. And I just think that's such a neat way of not wrapping up, but like continuing on with the story, which was such a big deal. It's like,
and do you feel like this is now going to pave the way for future Doctor Who baddies or villains, because it's going to be this whole new like spawning point for them all to kind of travel and kind of reveal themselves through. So we might not necessarily see so much of the previous baddies as much as we will see a whole flurry of new ones that we've maybe yet to see.
But actually, I think I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Was this baddie the same baddie in Midnight? Is that in Midnight?
Very, very heavy Midnight influences for sure.
And Russel T Davies wrote that episode as well. So in Midnight, the monster is mimicking. It's slowly mimics the person until they take over. These monsters don't take over per se, but it is that same gimmick. It's that same thing. So
is Midnight the episode where David they're on the ship or something?
It's another bottle episode. Yeah.
He's saved by that pesky sneaker, just not being able to let go from the underside of his seat.
But it is. It's like it's the one that's it's set on that ship. It's really scary because something's knocking from the outside, and then it gets in, but it's not a monster per se. It just like goes into somebody and then starts mimicking the Doctor's voice. It's really good. And then I thought it was the same monster. They never like explicitly said that, but I thought it was. I don't know what.
So Jerome briefly mentioned upon it before, but at the end of the episode, we finally reunited with an old friend. Did anyone else start to cry? Because I did, and I take no shame in the fact that I got very emotional seeing Wilf once again. It was a beautiful little moment.
It was so lovely to see Bernard Cribbins. Like he's everyone's granddad, isn't he? He's everyone's telly granddad, and he's like you could see like he was great in like the brief moment we saw him at the end, and he straight back into character, straight like believed him as Wilf entirely. You could tell he was ill. Not that was like my overriding thought as I was watching it, but like you could tell he was ill. But I think it's just awesome that he was able to do it, and that people will really care so much. And he's been in Doctor Who since the very beginning. I think I might be wrong about this. He was in Peter Cushing's non-canon Doctor Who movie.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He was in there's a couple of others as well. He's made like appearances and cameos, and I think he's done audiobooks and stuff. Like, it's a big part of his history. He's a big part of the show's history, and also, like, aside from Doctor Who as well, just so well known, so well loved by like children and adults alike. Like, just one of those like rare few that kind of feel like they exist in today's world, that just, I think, universally loved, like genuinely universally loved. I think, yeah, really, really happy we got to see him.
And it's so fitting that. Oh, sorry, go on.
I thought it was so good to have him there at the end. I think, you know, I remember when he was I'm pretty sure he was announced in the press as the companion for David Tennant's Doctor in his final episodes. And I remember reading that and thinking, that's a choice. Not anything to do with the actor, but I was like, have that character as like the mainstay. But it turned out to be like the biggest stroke of genius ever. I believe he's not
scenes as well with
some
him.
of the most emotional scenes, yeah. And I actually think that, well, I know reading these things, he's not going to be in next week's episode. They had more plans for him. He was going to be in a few more scenes, but it was never meant to be. He was too ill. It was such a fitting tribute, and then to actually have the tribute at the end where they dedicated the episode to him, I thought it was so good.
Yeah. He's I think it was they did really nicely with that. But yeah, speaking of like episodes and stuff, the giggle next week. I'm sticking by my guns here, maybe wrongly. I don't think the toy maker's the boss. I'm honestly, I think it's
wrong. You are wrong.
You think it's
Valiant? 100%. I'm telling you now.
Can I just hold my hands up? Something I didn't mention on the flux, and I don't want to go back to it ever. No, I just don't want to go back to it.
Well, if you're not going back to it, why am I?
Watch it, man. You should watch
I need to watch it. It sounds fantastic.
The reason I'm annoyed at Chris Chibnall is he decided to go back and take a story that never got fully flourished from classic Doctor Who, which turned out to be a Sylvester McCoy idea that never even got any screen time. And he had a perfect one set up with the Valiant and decided to ignore it. So,
which is kind of like, so that's almost kind of like kind of walking away from an idea like that without being able to pick up the pieces. It's a bit like Donna in the Christmas episode when she tries to jump from the taxi into the TARDIS, and if she didn't hit the TARDIS, if she hit the motorway and died in the moment, that's essentially what Chris Chibnall's done with Doctor Who.
He's done it. He's done it. Well done. I would say it's
going to circle back round.
Find out the context of what Dan's talking about right there.
The context is, last week we recorded this really funny joke about how Donna may not have made it to the TARDIS in that Runaway Bride episode, and she missed and she fell to her death. And it was really funny. And then I was like, Dan, we missed it. I cut it by accident. We weren't recording it. I was like, do you reckon you could shoehorn it into this episode? And he's done it. So, round of applause. Jerome, I've got a problem with you. I thought out of all people, you love classic Doctor Who, and I'll say it for you guys, I'll say it for everybody at home. Objectively, classic Doctor Who is shit. So, right, but you love it, right? And there's this throwaway scene, like a classic episode of Doctor Who, where they call them the Schalke Doctors or something. There's like a bunch of faces that appear on the screen about who the Doctor apparently has been.
It's the episode with the brain of Morbius. It's a Tom Baker.
The Morbius Doctors, yeah. So the Doctor's shown a bunch of faces of his from the past, and these are people that we haven't seen before. So it wasn't William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, Help Jerome, who came after John Pertwee. It wasn't any of those. So everyone was like, oh, they ignored it. And what Chris Chibnall did with Flux is essentially say that all of these people were Doctor Who, were the Doctor. Sorry, and I thought you'd love that. I thought you'd absolutely love that. Like, bubble it up.
Yeah, but it's just. I feel like if we should have a Flux special where we talk about Flux, because we could talk about Flux honestly.
Dan has to watch the Flux.
I need to watch it. Yeah,
we should watch the first, and then we should just have a podcast that is dedicated to talking about that, because we'll get into it. Like, there's too much to talk about with it.
Mike, write it down.
Yeah, way to shut me up, Jerome.
Going back to the next week's episode, I think it's going to be like, do you think? So I look at like Russell's kind of series 1 to 4 of like since 2005, and I look at like the End of Time kind of double, and I look at like Is it Journey's End, the one with Donna's?
Yeah.
Is it
Journey's End? Yeah.
Journey's End, yeah. And and I feel like it's going to have those vibes to it this episode. I think it's going to be a bit crazy. It's going to be like a lot of kind of explosions and things happening and big kind of character speeches, good and bad. And then obviously that sweet regeneration energy is coming back.
Can we talk about it? Because I was thinking, are there going to be any major deaths? And can we talk about the fact that I genuinely thought that they might be... Say again, sorry, you sounded underwater. What'd you say?
Catherine Tate nearly died in this one.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. We've just ignored that, and we should definitely talk about that, because I don't know about you two. I was on actually the edge of my seat thinking, are they about to kill her off?
Yeah. I did think it was going to be an incredibly ballsy move of Russel T Davies to do something like that. Thankfully he didn't, which was great. But again, Russel has that tendency to kind of pull you in emotionally to a point where you just think this is the end. This is I'm going to.
And this is how they're going to do that. And I was thinking the whole time. I was like, oh my god, Rose is back home. Like her whole family are back home. Like she's gone to the outer reaches of space, and they're going to kill her. And I did think for a second, oh my god, are the imposter versions of the Doctor and Donna, with all of their memories, going to make it back to Earth with the TARDIS, and are the Doctor and Donna going to be trapped there? And I thought that's how they would incorporate Ncuti Gatwa. What the hell is going on? Like, in the next episode, I thought it was going to be like the biggest, like,
and mention those one-liners. Obviously, in one of the very early teaser trailers, you had one of the redacted trailers, and it was obviously Doctor's line. She mentioned Gallifrey, but it wasn't in the way that we assumed. It was obviously the duplicate throwing it back out. Very clever ways of doing it. So I've been watching back the redacted ones for this third one, kind of thinking it's definitely not going to be as straightforward as we think. There's going to be some kind of wording in that. It's going to be a bit like, oh, it's actually going to mean something else. But I think, again, I'm so excited. It's going to be proper edge of your seat watching, because now it's going to really kick into overdrive.
Well, boys, it's prediction time. What are your predictions?
I think the boss is the Absorbaloff. It's going to happen, whether we like it or not. The Flux just fucks with everything, as far as I'm aware. It's either the Absorbaloff, or the Absorbaloff transforms into its human form, which is James Corden.
I would love to think that somewhere in Russel T Davies' contract with the BBC, there is a clause. Let's call it clause 9C. And in clause 9C, it basically says, "I will only come back to this fucking show if the Absorbaloff is the big bad." Not just for this series, not for these anniversaries, but going forward. It created it's been in the Doctor's history for the whole time. You remember when Clara entered his bloodstream and his memories? Yeah, the Absorbaloff was there.
The absorber clause.
And the thing is, it was an easy sell for James. He's got a career to kind of rebuild. He'll take anything at this point. And a big green monster with faces in its belly is more than a good enough way of getting your shit back on track.
Well, maybe, if Russel Davies is listening, which he won't be, but if he is, maybe the Flux destroyed Raxacorico Phalopatorius, the twin planet of the
Plum.
The Absorbaloff. Well, yeah, exactly. So maybe there's a story there. Theory wise, I think that Ncuti Gatwa is going to be in it a lot. I don't think he's just going to appear at the end. I think something strange is going to happen with this regeneration. Also, the clip of the regeneration isn't that the same background? It is the same background, right? That's in
Let me pull it up. I'm fairly sure it's the same background.
That background we know is, unintended, doctored. So we know that the background of that Ncuti Gatwa line where he says, "Can you tell me what the hell is going on here?" The actual background is fake because Russel T Davies has gone on record to say that if you showed the real thing, it would have revealed too much. And I think in the next time trailer where David Tennant's regenerating, it's the same background. So
the only interesting thing I've actually clocked here is not only the fact that it's the same TARDIS, but there's also a jukebox.
There's a jukebox. So maybe
There's
the
a
jukebox
jukebox playing. So
maybe
why would that be shown?
Well,
I
think he's in it.
Something.
I think he's in it loads. I don't think he's just in it at the end, 100%.
Yeah, completely.
I don't think he'll be in it loads. I agree with you. I think he might hit earlier than we think. I don't think he'll be in it loads because from what I've seen from the first 2 episodes, I feel like they are it's about David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and I think he will stick to that. But I agree with you. I think it could be that he's shown a lot earlier than we think. There's going to be something. There's going to be a twist. There's going to be something we haven't seen coming. There haven't been any like classic villains, which I'm glad about up until like next week's episode with the toy maker. But there haven't been like any in previous specials where the doctors had to go to Skaro and get a specific piece of information from the Daleks just to get them involved in the episode or anything like that. I feel like if I had to predict two things, I'd say David Tennant's going to say, "I'm ready to go." I'd almost put money on it.
Yes. Yes.
I'd put money on that. Maybe even a mortgage. And the other thing I think will happen is, weirdly enough, like maybe, do you think Donna will witness the regeneration? As in like David into Ncuti?
You know the promo materials for Ncuti Gatwa? Have you seen him? He looks like he's wearing Donna's coat. Donna's old coat, the kind of red one.
Do you know what? Yes.
Maybe do you think the Dr. Donna's going to regenerate together? That'd be a bit weird.
And I also think that, I think that Donna's family, the Noble family, are going to continue in the series because I think Rose is going to be in it much more than she has been, as in like through Ncuti Gatwa. So I think, I agree with you, Jerome. I think Donna's going to witness it. I think the coat's got some. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the toy maker will have something to do with the regeneration. I'm sure whether it's a radiation poisoning or accident or something happens, like I'm sure that will be influenced.
What about previous Doctors?
I don't think we're getting any cameos. I just don't think it will happen. I feel like, and if it does, I think it will be like a CGI thing where we see lots of them.
It'd be a quick flash.
I think it's going to be like a dialogue thing where we get, do you know what I mean? Like separate. I think if they're going to do it, it will be like a CGI where you get like a whole thing of all of them.
I'm in two minds because they've got a lot to do in this episode. I think it's only an hour, like these ones. They've got a hell of a lot to do. I also think at the same time, not having any of that fan service within these 3 episodes outside of having David Tennant and Catherine Tate back, which is specific fan service to the people that enjoyed their period of Doctor Who, I think isn't anniversary level. I don't know if I'd be disappointed if we didn't have some sort of.
I don't think I'd be disappointed if the episodes are good. Like, and I think like
the 50th was amazing and also had all of the fan service in the world. As a story, the 50th was incredible.
Yeah, but I feel like the 50's 50, like 60's obviously an anniversary, but like you look at anniversaries in Doctor Who, like there was like 10, 20, 30. I mean, obviously they had the 5 Doctors, they've had the 2 Doctors, but they've had some episodes where Doctors have just turned up. Like, I'd be interested. You know what I would be interested to see is because obviously we've lost Patrick Troughton and we've lost John Pertwee, and to be honest, I hope not. But Tom Baker's probably going to go pretty soon as well. I feel like.
So is that your prediction? That's your prediction for next week. Tom Baker's going to die in real life. Thanks a lot, Jerome. Fucking hell, Doom Slayer.
Realistically, but like,
so again.
Yeah, go on, Dan. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. I've just been clocking because I wanted to see what the running time was for next week's episode.
Tom Baker's died. You've seen it on the live. You've seen it on the live news.
So next week's episode is 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Ooh.
So 5 minutes full of cameos. That's why they've done it right. Right
And
at the
then,
end.
interestingly enough, although there's no date on this, it's listed as the next episode, which I'm going to assume is the Christmas special here. But the next episode is called Destination Scaro.
No, Destination Star is the name of the Children in Need special.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh, it might be. Okay. That's how shit it was. I didn't even know it had a title. It's just a noise. So, yeah, an hour and 5 minutes next week.
I do know what the Christmas special is called because they did release it, and I'm pretty sure it's the church on Ruby Road.
Rectamundo. So obviously we've got to give a spoiler alert here because you know. But yeah. So church on Ruby. There you go. That's a spoiler alert. Church on Ruby Road. So I believe it's been confirmed that that her name's Ruby, right? Yeah, Ruby. Yeah, is an orphan. So I think that's how they are going to again tie in the timeless child fluxing. I think they're going to keep it going because the Doctor doesn't know where they're from. Ruby doesn't know where she's from. So I think yeah. I've got nothing to say about it.
One cameo. If you could have one appearance in the giggle, who would it be? Dan.
Peter Kay.
Christopher Eccleston.
Chris Eccleston.
Because
Mike?
no one would be expecting that. I think it's a lot, considering the past, everything he's gone on record to say, the way the BBC treated him, the fact that, like you very well mentioned, Jerome, the fact that he's doing another BBC series. So something's kind of fixed between himself and the Beeb in recent years. Would that open up the opportunity for him to make the most surprising of appearances, even if it's for a split second?
Jerome, who do you think mine is?
Honestly,
Sylvester McCoy.
He's another one that'll be dead next week according to Jerome's little doom scrolling.
I think, Mike, you never stop going on, in fairness, about the Doctor's mum in that really weird brief cameo from the end of time part 2.
I've never spoken about that brief cameo from the
how much you just like. There's so much unrealized character potential there. So I'm getting her.
Mine's the same as Dan's. I think Christopher Eccleston going up in live action Doctor Who would be like that would be, for me, that would be Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire level Spider-Man No Way Home stuff, because everything that he said about it, about how much he didn't enjoy that series and how he'd either fallen out with Russel T Davies, I think that for those relationships to have healed and for him to come back would be, be mad.
Fair.
What about you, Jerome?
Well, I mean, Dan, you've said Christopher Eccleston. Mike, you've said Christopher Eccleston. So I'm going to be really boring here, lads. And I'm also going to say the Valeyard, because I think it's about time that the Valeyard got some screen time. So that's for me. That would be my dream cameo.
Oh, what? I've got another curveball. Yanto Jones.
Yanto Jones.
That's not exactly like scream at your television, like. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe he's
I'm
dead.
not saying it's a popular. Is he dead?
He's not meant to just turn up.
Yanto's dead. He died in Children of Earth.
Oh no. Was it the special?
Yes, he did.
Miracle Day? No, it wasn't Miracle Day.
Oh, we don't talk about Miracle Day.
Again, Miracle Day was a complete waste of time. Miracle Day is Torchwood's Flux. If you're Jerome, not me, I loved it. No, Yanto Jones died. Like, he was like,
you're right, he did. Yeah. Shit.
Oh, look who's doom scrolling now. Right.
We've reached the natural end. So prediction. Hold on, we need to rate the episode.
Oh. Am I going first?
I'll go.
8.5.
Slick.
How do you go?
I'm gonna say 9 out of 10. it was pretty flawless for me.
Right.
I loved it. I'm gonna say 8.5.
8 point. Why not 9? Where's that 0.5 for you?
Well, I wanted to see more of it, and also I was just thinking in my head while we were talking about the scores for this. I think we should do a podcast where we rate like our top 5 or top 10 Doctor Who episodes each, and then give them like a rating score. So I'm reluctant to give it a 10 because giving a 10 to anything is like, well, you can't get better. And 9 is like, I wanted to give it 10, but I dare not. So I feel like because I'm not sure, I'm giving it an 8.5.
Well, we have got a gap for a few weeks between now and the Christmas special, haven't we?
Yeah,
So we
that
could
might,
just
that might be good.
slot that one in. I like it. I like it.
I'm going to say that episode was a 9 for me and could have been a 10. But I think what let it down for me were, I think you could have had some sort of multi-doctor shenanigans in there, to be honest. I would have really liked that. I think it would have been a nice, neat way of getting into the story. And the other thing was, I thought some of the CGI was absolutely fucking shit, which is really surprising considering all that money they've got. But come on. When the car thing came out of the spaceship floor, and it just looked like they were standing on a green screen, and I think I just expected more out of this new like partnership they've got going on. I thought, yeah, some of it was good. The big corridor I thought looked pretty rubbish.
On the plus side of the green screen aspect, I really like the fact that we just got some space in Doctor Who, because like for a time traveling alien, we don't actually get a lot of space. And I feel like there was one shot where I think it was when he like released the camera to look down the ship, and it was just into like pure black sky, and you just saw like the rest of the spacecraft and like how long it was, and just like, yeah, kind of how imposing. And I thought that's actually, I really enjoyed that.
It was really cool. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed that whole concept about how they were on the, that's something I wanted to mention, is the fact that the TARDIS took them to the end of the universe a reference to Utopia, the one with Martha and Jack.
Yeah.
Because the TARDIS takes them to the end of the universe, and it's in danger again because Captain Jack is hanging on to the TARDIS, isn't it? Is that the same?
A wormhole though, didn't it?
What went through a wormhole?
Like, as in this part of it, didn't they mention like?
Oh yeah, the spaceship went through.
The spaceship went into a wormhole. It got into like a vacuum.
How did but then the TARDIS still got there, didn't it? Because they're not actually in a different universe, are they? They're at the end of our universe, staring into another universe, or the dead space between universes, which have been brought closer together by flux. Sorry, Jerome. And I thought that the TARDIS took them there because it, the first time it took them there was in that Utopia episode, to the furthest reaches of the universe, because Captain Jack was hanging on to it and it was trying to shake off Captain Jack, because what did they say? Captain Jack was an unlikely event or something in the universe where he can't die, so it goes against the laws of the universe. So it was trying to like run away from him. And then in this one, Donna spilled a coffee on it. So, but it's still like I thought it was a clever reference to a previous story. I thought, but maybe I'm wrong.
Just something I'm just thinking on that as well. When we were talking about like the TARDIS and what it's capable of, and like what we're told, and like the Doctor lies. I was listening to something on a podcast recently where it was like Russel T Davies was saying that, because he was talking about flux, and he was kind of like, anything's possible. He was like, anything, there's potential for anything, and any idea will be taken on. He was like, there's only one idea in Doctor Who that I have like sworn I will never follow up on. And he was like, and the other showrunners, he was like, I've talked to Chris Chibnall about this, I've talked to Stephen Moffat. He was like, we've just agreed we will never go down this route. And it was part of the reason that the Doctor Lies in 2005 was like introduced. And it was because of the Paul McGann movie, where he basically goes, I'm half human on my mother's side. And all of the showrunners were like, absolutely not. No way. It's never happened. chance. We're never ever putting that in. But apparently that was like one of the reasons like the whole Doctor Lies thing got incorporated, because they were like, we just can't do that.
We should have another podcast about that as well, because what is so bad about that idea? I've never understood why it's so bad.
What, the human?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll save it, but there's a lot probably.
Yeah. Right. I'll stop this recording.
Oh, you sure you know how?
Let's all say goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
How the fuck do you stop this thing?